This is the Last Temptation of John podcast, and I am John. I'm currently reading through the second book in my trilogy. This book is called The Rise of the Antichrist, and we're going to cover chapters 7 and 8 today. Obviously, if you haven't heard the earlier chapters, you should go back and listen to them, and of course, if you hadn't heard book 1, you might want to read that first. In any case, if you're ready to continue, let's move forward. Chapter 7 is called The Chairs of Woe. The date is June 27th. I wasn't surprised when my sight showed me another vision of the scene back at New Babylon. For my part, I no longer had any questions that Gaz al-Ridwan Mebu was the beast I wrote about in the Book of Revelation. And even though I didn't want to take part in the fight against him myself, I found that I was unusually intrigued by him. It was like watching a horror movie where you just can't look away. Meanwhile, when my vision fully materialized, I saw that Dr. Mebu was talking with my friend Alan. The latter was still a captive of the Human League dictator. 7 rooms, 7 chairs, Mebu said to his prisoner. Getting my bearings, I could see that it was evening, apparently a day and a half or so after I last saw them in Mebu's chambers. In that short time, though, I could see that in Alan's face much had occurred, and it wasn't good. To begin with, I guessed that Mystery had delivered on her promise, and although I was sure that Alan probably tried to resist her, in the end, Mystery had likely forced herself upon him and had thus consummated his sin, much to Alan's horror. That event must have happened the previous night. Since then, I'd wager that Alan had probably been left alone to wallow in his own self-pity, an effective psychological assault indeed. Looking at the hopelessness on my friend's face, it was easy to see that Alan was not thinking straight, and I knew if he didn't get out of there soon, his soul was going to be lost. For a brief moment, I actually felt a tug on my heart, pulling me to help my friend. But I quickly squashed this. After all, Alan knew the danger of being a keeper of the nails. We all knew this day would come sooner or later. Now it was simply Alan's turn to face the music. Look, I'm sorry if that sounds harsh to you, the listener, but I don't have time to coddle you anymore. I could see Alan was standing alongside Mebu, and both of them were at the end of a hallway. There were 7 doors forming a semicircle in front of them. Behind the doors, only the unknown awaited. Just then, some color came into Alan's face, and I saw him straighten his back as he said, "The Lord saves. Let us exalt his name forever." For his part, Mebu chuckled at Alan's attempt to show faith. Nice try, old boy, but it won't work here. Oh, sure, we both know you've been able to praise your way through the storm before, but your words ring hollow on this occasion. I can sense your self-doubt, Alan. It's gnawing at you. It's beautiful. This is your moment of truth, but you can't help feeling like you've already lost. Am I about right? Alan didn't reply directly to Mebu, but instead looked heavenwards. Oh, Lord, how can I be delivered now? For I am already in Satan's hands. The beast grinned at that. The Lord has assigned you your portion and your cup, eh? So, do you accept it? Hanging his head, Alan sighed. There is a time for everything. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time for love and a time for hate. A time to be born and even a time to die. And then he looked boldly at his captor. I will not shy away from my destiny, but I also know this. The Lord redeems his servants, and no one who takes refuge in him will be condemned. That's nice. In any case, let me present... And here Mebu put on his best game show host persona as he stood in front of the 7 doors. The Chairs of Woe! Each door had a name printed on it in Latin, which Mebu read off. Luxuria, Gula, Avaritia, Acedia, Ira, Invidia, and Superbia. And then translating further, lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. I understood you with the Latin, Alan said without emotion. The 7 deadly sins. How clever. Well, obviously I didn't bring you all the way here just to leave you in the hallway, so which will it be, old boy? And then in an ominous voice, the beast commanded, Choose, now. Yet Alan remained silent. Mebu didn't miss a beat and then proceeded on his own. Well, we can eliminate lust. You've already experienced plenty of that from your time with Mystery, eh? Even as Alan blushed painfully, Mebu piled on. Or maybe you really did enjoy your time with her and you just don't want to admit it, huh? That's enough, you dog, the professor snarled. Well, that leaves you 6 options, so which chair would you like? Of course, you do understand that once you experience even one of my chairs, you will never be the same. Oh, most people perish from the terrors they experience, but I'm interested to see what's going to happen to you, my immortal Lazarus. Despite flinching at the name, Alan still refused to reply. But this time, Mabu made no effort to say anything either, and so the minutes dragged by. It was Alan who broke the silence and said in his most professorial tones, I gather your expectation is that since I can't die, once I experience the sin from one of your chairs, it will engulf my soul. I could see Alan sweating as he spoke on, now that certain realizations were becoming clear to him. And furthermore, you're hoping to force me to endure all 7 chairs so that you can see if it's possible to destroy the soul of an immortal? Actually, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, again, I'm sad for Alan and all, but I'm really grateful that it's not me in that position. Now, apparently, Mabu didn't think Alan would have guessed that, because the look on the beast's face was one of astonishment as he applauded. My good man! You truly are a Septicatadra. Again, I ask you, join me, Alan. And here Mabu held out his hand. Come, be my second in command. Surely I am offering you a higher post than what the Cursed One and his son have promised you. At least the promises of my master are to be trusted, and we both know yours are worthless, Mabu. As you wish. Again, your loss. And here Mabu looked back at the doorways as he said, So, which room will it be? Alan again avoided the question as he said to himself, A righteous man may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. After all, what can mortal man do to me? I am protected by God himself. Here it was that the beast finally lost his patience. First of all, let me remind you that I am no mortal man. And secondly, if you don't choose your fate, then I will do it for you. And with that, my vision ended. I never got to see Alan's choice. Yet I'm wondering now, which door would you have chosen? Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, pride? What's it going to be? Chapter 8 is called The Day of Doom. The date is actually now June 4th. Believe it or not, it was a week before I found out what happened to Alan. During that time, I tried to drink myself into oblivion. It didn't work. You still don't understand me, do you? Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Let me tell you, those who linger over their drink, watching it sparkle and rejoicing when it goes down smoothly. But in the end, it bites like a snake and poisons like a viper. For my eyes see strange sights, and my mind imagines confusing things. They hit me, I cry, but in the next breath, I'm not hurt. They beat me, but I don't feel it. And when I wake, all I can think about is, when can I find another drink? Listen, that's Proverbs chapter 23. Read it for yourself and you'll see. I'm not alone in that wisdom. Yes, I have an addiction, but I happen to like it. The fact is, I was so damn drunk this past week, even if I did get a vision, it didn't register, and that was all right by me. But unfortunately, I ran out of liquor, and being too lazy to go to the store, I found myself languishing in bed with a terrible headache. And just as I began to get sober, naturally that's when he snuck another vision on me. This time I found myself looking in on a small apartment. Alan was comatose in a bed, and Miriam was sitting beside him as she said, God is our refuge, Alan. Fear not. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the sea, we will trust in the Lord. Meanwhile, my attention was drawn to a small TV in the corner of the room. A German anchorman was struggling to deliver the news. I'll translate for you since I doubt you speak German.
None will ever forget June 26th, the day of doom. Current death tolls are simply beyond imagination. Japan, gone. Engulfed by a massive typhoon, 130 million dead. That same monster also ravaged China's coast, killing perhaps 500 million more. Elsewhere, scientists have advised that a fissure caused Antarctica to break apart. sending nearly a quarter of that icy mass out into the southern seas, swelling the oceans. Floodwaters have since ravaged South America, Australia, and South Africa. Little communication is possible at this time, and uncounted tens of millions are suspected dead. Today is the traditional Independence Day for the United States of America, yet that country has its own laments from the 26th. U.S. scientists are advising that the Earth's crust shifted beneath the westernmost portion of their continent, causing a giant sinkhole to open in the sea floor that appears to have swallowed the province of California. 40 million presumed dead. President Trump has declared martial law is in effect.
Okay, now do you see why I was drinking so much? These are not the kinds of chipper tidbits I like to hear, especially because ever since that day, all sporting events have been canceled. This was worse than the coronavirus fiasco, and worst of all, on June 26, my Phillies were playing against the Giants. The San Francisco Giants? Or should I say the San Andreas Fault Giants? Ugh, now they're gone too. They're all gone. Damn you, Mabu. Just then, the newsman puts down his papers and looked directly into the camera, and with wild eyes he said,
"This can only mean one thing. The end of the world is nigh. Prepare your souls for..."
But the screen went black and was quickly replaced by a message in German that said, "We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please bear with us." Ha! That old fool doesn't know how right he is. At this point, I guess Miriam had seen enough, and she used the remote to turn the TV off. Well, goody for her, she knows how to use a remote. Gee, she might as well be a monkey collecting coins on the streets of New York. Okay, I know that was harsh, but I just don't like Miriam, and you know that. Anyway, Miriam looked down at Alan, who was still lying motionless on the bed, and she whispered, "My soul finds rest in God alone. He is our rock. We will never be shaken." All of a sudden, I got a momentary pain in my head. Now, whether this was due to my hangover or the prophecy, I couldn't say. But as the haze cleared, I found myself presented with an array of new sights. I was still watching Miriam, but apparently my vision had shifted back in time. For once more, she was now hiding in Mabu's courtyard within that statue of the beast. In my vision, it was now early morning, and it looked as if Miriam was on the verge of abandoning her hiding spot, when of a sudden the curtains of the dictator's parlor opened to reveal Alan at breakfast with Mabu. This must have been that meeting we saw together back on, what was it, June 25th? Really, it's so confusing how all these visions fit together, right? I mean, if you're confused, imagine me. Now, Miriam must have been able to see Alan at that table, because the open windows afforded her a great view from where she sat, and so for the time being she didn't move. Together we watched Alan and Mabu dine. Then we saw Alan's distress over something Mabu showed him on his laptop. Remember, that must have been when he looked at the 7 angels who were trapped in those prison cells, with the golden bowls of wrath steaming up from beneath them. And then we witnessed Alan's obvious rejection of the tyrant's offer of friendship. All of this took a bit of time, but even still, it must have all seemed like a good thing from Miriam's vantage point. After all, she could see that Alan was alive and he was resisting the beast. However, I watched her concern grow when a beautiful young woman entered the room, and there was no doubt in my mind that Miriam would view Mystery as an evil temptress, and I think she fully expected Alan to be put off by her too. However, when it became clear that Alan actually recognized Mystery, and worse yet that Alan later went away with her, suddenly I saw Miriam's confidence drain. For I knew that she wondered how any sane man could be willingly led away by such an obviously wayward woman. I mean, even I had to admit that from this vantage point, it looked like Alan was a lamb going to the slaughter. I saw Miriam flinch. Clearly, she wanted to get inside the palace and rescue Alan. However, in the bright light of day, with all the guards around, and with Mabu still situated within view in his parlor, it was obvious Miriam could not move. And so we waited. It wasn't until later that evening before Miriam could actually make her way inside the palace. And even then she wasn't able to enter Mabu's private section, but instead had to sneak her way inside one of the side areas that was less guarded. Now, once inside, I watched her begin a systematic search of the palace, trying to find a way to relocate Alan. It was a slow process. After all, even with her mental gifts, Miriam didn't know where to look, and she still had to hide from countless guards, all while trying to fly under the radar of Mabu's intricate security systems. Furthermore, even though I knew that Miriam had communicated in the past with Alan using her telepathic gifts, right now she had no idea where to project her mind to, and thus couldn't locate him with this technique either. As the hours passed, I saw Miriam get more desperate, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was thinking about what that woman might be doing to corrupt Alan. In her panic, I saw Miriam begin to use her psychic probe with more regularity, frantically questing for knowledge about Alan. But soon enough, she resorted to outright violence. Apparently, these techniques worked because it seemed Miriam finally got some useful intelligence. After a brush with more of the household personnel, she suddenly made straight for Alan's cell room. Unfortunately, when she got there, the prison cell was empty. An hour later, Miriam found another helpful mind and gained whispers of Mabu's dungeon-like laboratory. But once she searched there, she discovered none of them held Alan. Interesting enough, I noted that when some of the cages inside Mabu's life forms were occupied, Miriam did not take the time to help those prisoners, instead leaving those forsaken souls to God's will while she continued her search for Alan. Well, nobody's perfect, I guess. Further probes garnered Miriam more insights, yet all led to additional dead ends. Apparently, no one seemed to know where Alan was now, and none could give any insights into that woman of mystery that Miriam was so concerned about. The day of the 26th soon passed, and as the afternoon of the 27th approached, Miriam's haste increased, and she began to use her probe with such brutality that whoever she encountered was left in pretty bad shape. I heard later that palace physicians were forced to deal with a number of inexplicable stroke cases from that day. Of course, you and I know what's really behind that, right? In any case, Miriam carried on. Finally, while traversing one of the many sub-levels again, Miriam came across a nondescript servant shuffling along with his head down. Seeing that the man was so lethargic, I thought Miriam might just let him pass by so she wouldn't have to waste any time. But as he loped past her hiding spot, apparently Miriam caught a whisper from the man's mind. Immediately then, Miriam surged inside his brain, ransacking through his mental fibers to find out if he knew where Alan was. As it turned out, he did. Miriam discovered that the servant's name was Ephod, and he was one of Mabu's personal attendants. But more importantly, Miriam learned that Ephod had earlier in that day escorted Alan and Mabu to a hidden corner of the underground complex, to a hallway that ended in 7 doorways, to a place that held the Chairs of Woe. Well, that's the end of our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Now be sure to visit our website at temptationofjohn.com, where you can read the full text version of this chapter, get access to exclusive interactive media content only available online, and go behind the scenes with additional references about the Apostle John, Mary Magdalene, the Antichrist, the Book of Revelation, and much more. On our website, you'll find links to every podcast episode, and you can also join the Temptation of John Book Club. It's free to join, and you can get notified when new chapters are released, and even interact with the author. That's yours truly. Again, you'll find all this and more at temptationofjohn.com.